My name is Ginger Smith-Gallagher, and now Karna. And let's see, my grandfather had Red Cedar built in 1934 because of new Route 66 being built. That's my connection with Pacific. Lived here most of my life. Short few years up in Union, a year and a half in Seattle, Washington. And then my husband wanted to stay in Seattle. I said, you stay, I'm going home. I'm not staying here. I've been away from home a year and a half, that's enough. Then we lived in Pacific in town on Columbus Street until I was 12. And then Dad and his partners split partnership, and they when they split it, somebody tossed a coin, and whoever got the coin flip was going to keep Red Cedar, and he had to buy the other one out. So when Dad won, and Mom was Mom was right there to help him anyway. They decided that it would be easier on them to sell our little house and move to Red Cedar. So that's when I guess their friend and customer was carpenter talked to Mom and Dad about how they could do something to Red Cedar so we could live. So that's when they built the Knotty Pine Wall in 1959. And what was funny, they didn't put any insulation in between the walls, and there's two walls, but so we could hear what was going on, and we had to be really quiet, so we didn't make a lot of noise when people were in the dining room. But you'd think people would know how to build things, but anyway. Let's see, where would I go? I was not happy as a kid, because as soon as we moved in, I started working there, and then picking up trash in the driveway and carrying up groceries from the basement, and taking peeled potatoes down, and just doing all kinds of things like that. So it's like to my dad, if Grandpa had a 200-acre farm in Villa Ridge, why did he have to sell that? And he said, well, it's during the Depression. He had to sell that to build Red Cedar. Didn't hear much about the Depression. A lot of different people talk about how bad the Depression was, but Mom and Dad never said that much about it, other than they couldn't put sugar out on the tables because people would steal it, and they forever stole silverware. So that's where the 200-acre farm in Villa Ridge. But Grandpa had on the St. Louis Rock Road, which I understand was the main road from that area into the city, and he had a little tavern on that road, and there was a house on there, and in the summertime, my dad, being the oldest son, drove their Model T from Eureka, where Grandma and the kids lived, up, and they stayed at part of the summer up at that house on Riverview Farm it was called, yeah, Riverview Farm. And we still have a picture of the trees and the river where the logs came from for Red Cedar. But of course they bootlegged on that farm too. But before they bought it, so whoever owned it before them bootlegged, and people next door bootlegged. They all bootlegged up there. But I met a friend of my grandfather's. My grandfather died before I was born, and that was a funny one too, because Mom said Grandpa died before he knew I was pregnant, and I'm thinking, wonder when he died. So I asked Dad, when did he die? Oh, 1944. I said, Mom, I was born in 47. Well, yeah, he died. He didn't know you were us. Right. Mom, that doesn't, so that was, that, she's still, but that's okay. But, so I said to Dad, about selling that farm, and and he said, okay, we got that taken care of. So then, Amiel Wallach was a friend of my grandfather's, and he was a farmer in Eureka. Had a great big gigantic farm, from what mom and dad said. Well, he would come to Red Cedar once in a while, and he lived to be like 100, I think. And he told me 2 stories about the grandfather, because I'd never heard them, but he said he was at the little tavern up there on at Riverview, and my grandfather showed him the specs for Red Cedar and said, this fellow is gonna cut the trees and whatever you do, and could you do a better job? Apparently he had a sawmill too, so he said, no, it's a good price. You go ahead and let him do that. And it's like, the plans for Red Cedar, so who knows what happened to the plans for Red Cedar, but anyway, and then he told me, he said his wife, Amiel Wallach, said his wife used to get after him. He said, you don't need to go to Red Cedar, your kids need shoes. And he told her, he said, Jimmy Smith's kids need shoes too. I'm going to still go up and patronize Jimmy Smith. So a lot of people in Pacific called it Jimmy Smith, called Red Cedar Jimmy Smith. A lot of them did. A lot of the old timers did. And let's see. When we moved down to Red Cedar, they built a knotty pine wall, and we had a living room and 2 bedrooms and a bath, and then later on Mom and Dad added another bedroom. But I don't know if I want to tell this one. One of us got to sleep on a hide-a-bed in the living room, and the other one got my brother and I, the other one got the bedroom. So I got to thinking, if I sleep on that sofa, I can watch TV. Because back then, you had one TV. You didn't have a TV in every room, and in your car, and everywhere else. But, so, yeah, I got to sleep on that hide-a-bed. And we know what was funny? I think, it was almost like somebody planned. Every night, it seems like somebody played Moonlight Serenade on the jukebox, and I heard that going to sleep at night. Uh-huh. And that was Glenn Miller, I think. I think that was Glenn Miller playing that Moonlight Serenade. But every time I hear that song, then, of course, you don't hear it much anymore, but when I hear it, it's like, makes me think of that, But we used to skate, my brother and I used to skate on the front porch with the roller skates that your shoe fits in, and I've still got the key and the skates. And, yeah, we used to skate on the front porch. So, let's see, what else? Well, let's see, wait a minute. Let me look at my notes. Well, I don't know how to go chronologically, really.
Well, you can tell, you don't have to go chronologically, you just tell stories, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, one good, a lot of the stories are good, but one of the stories, we received a call about somebody wanting to come in and take pictures from Volkswagen. So we were closed that day, and it was a rainy day, so we didn't think they'd want to take pictures, but they did. And here comes a big transport truck with the Volkswagens, the new Volkswagens, inside the truck, because they didn't drive them along Route 66, but what they were doing, they were going to make a calendar. And I said to the man, don't you want to wait? Oh, they sent a photographer from Germany, and but a man from the United States drove the transport, and he was there. They were there quite a while that day, and Wes and I made lunch for them, visited with them, and they even had he had lights from the inside, from windows, facing out, and then he was across the highway, kind of down that way. If this is Red Cedar, he was down that way, taking pictures, and it's a really good picture. But you know, when we were pictures were taken, or people came by and talked to us, or did documentaries, or whatever, we usually heard from them. We didn't hear from these people from Volkswagen. So one day, two young men from Switzerland came in, and they wanted to visit with one of the family, and I'm the only one there all the time. So I went out and talked, and that's the only fun I really had at Red Cedar, was visiting with all the people stopping and traveling Route 66. And they were so sweet, and they wanted to send me something from Switzerland. And I said, geez, I don't need anything, you know. And then I thought, you know what, I'd really like to know if we ever got into that calendar. And when they got back, one of the young men contacted Volkswagen in Germany. They sent him this calendar, and he sent it to us. You've seen it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And the picture's beautiful. And we're Miss February.
Yes.
We were in a lot of different magazines, and sometimes it was a sentence, and sometimes it was paragraphs, you know. And we were in the BMW motorcycle magazine, and they sent us a copy in English. And one later after that, mom and dad and two sons, looked like teenagers, and the boys spoke English, the parents did not. They had the same magazine in German, and the dad was showing me, and it's like, yeah, I know all about it, it's right there. I could see the name Red Cedar, but I already had it in English, you know. But that was really neat, you know. So, but we've been in like at least 3 documentaries. You know why it's named the Outback. Allenton and Pacific together. That Allenton is now part of Eureka, I think. But it was named because of Allenton and Pacific, part of that name. Yeah. And Gene and I don't know that they ever had kids, but Gene, what was their names?
Miller?
Yes,
Miller.
yes. Gene Miller was a woman, I'm pretty sure. And then when they retired, they had a fire there. Maybe that's when they retired. Jeez, I can't remember that. They moved up to Villa Ridge. Did anybody talk to you about the Cozy Dine that was there, where Old 66 is here, and Robertsville Road goes down there? Right across over here, on the other side, was the Cozy Dine, a restaurant. And the bus used to stop there, and if we needed medicine, our doctor was in Washington, and the pharmacy would fix the medicine, and as it got somehow on the bus, and we'd go up there to pick up our medicine to Cozy Dine. That was the bus stop. The Red Cedar's built in 1934, and apparently only just men, well, men worked there. Now, my grandfather also had a pool hall in Eureka, and women did not go in the pool hall, just to show you about how women did not go in these places. The pool hall was like a block from where Grandma and Grandpa lived, and they had, my dad's the second of 6 kids, and 3 of them were girls. And when Grandma would make a meal, cook a meal, and she sent the girls over with the meal, they couldn't even go in the pool hall. They handed it to them, whoever would, Grandpa or my uncles would take the food, but they could never go in the pool hall. And my uncle, my aunt's husband took their daughter in the pool hall, and did he get in trouble? She had a little bitty thing, but he got in a lot of trouble for taking her in the pool hall. But, so there was no women here in 35, and then one of Uncle Chubb's, Fazal's, brothers told Mom that Red Cedar was looking for a woman. They wanted to, I guess, change things around in there and make it a little bit more civilized or something. And so Mom went down there and got a job, and she made $1 a day. And she's, of course, met my dad. And then in 1940, Dad proposed on the back porch. And they got married and lived at Red Cedar for a year. There was, the ladies' room was on one side of the back wall, and the men's room was on the other side. But on the other side of the ladies' room was a room that at different times was a storage room where they kept beer and things. And Mom and Dad lived in that room at one time for the first year they were married. But in 1935, they built the bar room at Red Cedar, and Mom was there when they moved the bar. It was, if you go in the front door, it was on the right side. I guess the men's room's here, and then the bar must come out that way. I can remember people talking about how inconvenient it was to sit at the bar on a stool, and it was not close. And then Mom and Dad had somebody build that extension of the bar where it was soft, and you could put your arms on it. But I heard different ones talking. It must have been a bar where the guys stood, and because it was not built for a bar stool at all, any kind of chair or bar stool. And I can remember in the bar room when I was a kid, there was the telephone booth. And when we went back after Red Cedar, Mom and Dad retired in 1973, and it was leased out to about 5 different groups of people. And we went back in end of 87, I think, and I was trying to collect and put things back in that we had that were there. And Mom said, "You're not going to like this," that Bell Telephone wanted to give Dad that phone booth. It was a booth, stood by itself, and it had a door that folded, and you close it, and you sit down, and you talk on the phone, and she said they wanted to give it to Dad, and Dad said, "What am I going to do with it? I didn't want it. He didn't want it." So we could have had a phone booth. But anyway, so much for that. After so many years, we found that it was better. It was hard to get employees. We had a lot of employees, especially when you have more than one shift. So we cut it down to one shift, and we're just open in the evening. So during the day, we're in there cooking and cleaning and doing bookwork and stuff. Well, I went into the bar for something, and I heard somebody at the barroom door, and they're talking, and oh, look at this door, and I wonder if anybody's here, and so I thought, and I didn't feel well that day, but so I really didn't want to open the door, and I thought, yeah, I probably ought to let them in. So I let them in, and it was a couple from L.A. who were here visiting the husband's dad, and I guess the husband was from St. Louis, and the wife, or they couple, wanted to see some of Route 66, and so I showed them around and visited with them, and turned out that she was a writer for the TV show Wings, and he worked for the Screenwriters Guild, and trying to break into the business, I think is what they said. And I was kind of embarrassed because I worked from the time I got up to the time I went to bed, and I didn't watch TV. So I didn't know about this show. I'd heard of it, but I don't think I ever saw it. So she sent me a autographed picture of the cast. And I'm really, really am proud of that picture. And one of the two brothers ran an airport on this show, and one of the brothers addressed to me said, "Ginger, where's Mary Ann?" Of course, that's reference to Gilligan's Island. But and then Tony Shalhoub, who was Monk, is in there, and he said, "Thanks for watching," which made me feel bad. But and then it was, and the picture's dark, so I can't. It's a hard time reading some of what was said, but it's one of my prized possessions. But that makes, when talking about Gilligan's Island and Ginger, makes me think about when I answered the phone, people would say, "Who are you?" Because a lot of them would call and make reservations, but a lot of them wanted to meet part of the family. So sometimes when they'd call me out in the dining room, because I was in the kitchen most of the time, they'd call me out to meet me. Some of them would look at me and it's like, "You thought I was going to look like Tina Louise, didn't you?" and some of them would say, "Yeah." So that was funny. And one of our turned out to be really good friends, Jim and Louise Gilbert. Their son chose got to choose where he wanted to go out to eat for his birthday, and he said, he called and made reservations. He said, "Well, you're never there," and I didn't know him, but he asked who I was. He was who he was talking to. I said, "You're never there." I said, "I am too. I'm here all the time," and so I went out when they came, and at that point we were selling shirts and things, and I gave some things to the son, and he was a teenager, and they became some of our really good, close friends, because that's the people you're around, are the people you work with and your customers, and a lot of the customers turned out to be really good friends, and they were there for almost every event going on there, and even it came to family birthdays and all kinds of stuff. Well, then Herb and Wilma Eberly were customers of ours, and then we became friends, and then he started playing music in the dining room about once a month, I guess, or maybe every other month or something. But he and Wilma took us out to St. Louis one night when we were closed, and in walks John Auble. And it's like, "Herb, you didn't tell us he was going to come." So anyway, we met John Auble, found out that he came out to interview Mom, and we were on Channel 2. I think it was. I think he was on Channel 2. And I'm pretty sure he was. And so when he interviewed Mom, and they had a good time, she ended up telling him, and it was on the TV, about how one night somebody wouldn't behave in the bar room, and Dad told him to leave, and he wouldn't leave, and Mom got the broom and was hitting him with the broom. "Get out of here! Jimmy told you to leave, and you're leaving." So anyway, John Auble had that on the TV, and that story. But anyway, his birthday was the day before my mom's, and so for like 10 years he came out and celebrated and had a really good time with. We had a good time, and he was so much fun. And if his wife wasn't working, she was there, and his stepson was there with him, and yeah, he was real sweet, real nice. And so okay, John Auble's story. I gotta look again.
We talked about how you guys started going to the baseball game, like you and Wes.
Yeah.
And then before you knew, you guys had a bus. Tell everybody about that.
Oh yeah, that was opening day. That was so much fun. Yeah, we started off, I think, with 2 other couples, and people would hear Wes talk about it, and the other people talk about it, because they were all customers and friends, customer friends. And it got to the point where we took 2 busloads of people down to the opening day at Busch Stadium. And Herb was down there playing, Herb Everly was down there playing music, and he came over, and it's like people are looking, who are these people that they're playing music for them getting off the bus? It was so much fun. Yeah, and we've got a lot of pictures of that, yeah. Oh, that was fun. And some of us went to Wrigley Field. We were closed a couple of days. First, we weren't closed any days. Then we found that didn't work. We had to have a day off. So most restaurants are closed on Monday. So we're not going to do that. We'll close on Tuesday. So it made a lot more sense. So anyway, we closed Tuesday, and I guess maybe we took another day off. But we went to Chicago for 2 days and 1 night, and went to Wrigley Field, and some of those same people went with us to that game. So I think there was 6 or 8 couples that went to that. That was one of the few times I was in Chicago.
You said Bob Klinger and other Cardinal players. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bob Klinger was from Allenton. And, of course, Dad's originally from Eureka. And way back in 1915, 1920, it's a smaller area, a lot less people, so you knew everybody. And Bob Klinger was always, Dad said, playing ball, and I think he had a tire hooked up to a tree, and he would pitch through that tire. And Dad was lucky enough when Bob pitched in the 1946 World Series. He took 4 men to the. I guess he had free seats for them, and took 4 men. And Dad was one of the 4 that got to go to that game. But Bob would bring out people that he played, ball players that he played with, and his son Rick, who's a friend of ours, knows more about all the people they brought, but he was such good friends with Dizzy Dean, and never thought to ask Dad some of these stories. Mom said one guy named Butcher, Mom said was so tall he had to being down to even walk in the dining room. And Morton Walker Cooper were some that I remember them talking about. I wasn't there, but I remember him talking about this. It was before I was born. Bob Klinger was a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun. And he was a neighbor of ours when we lived in town in Pacific before we moved to Red Cedar. But there's a lot of stories, but Rick knows more stories than I do. Rick liked our barbecue sauce, and he'd have roast beef, barbecue beef, and French fries. And he came in after we went back in '87, and he came in to order that, and the waitress came in and said, "This guy out there wants this. It's not on the menu." And well, yeah, we can serve that. Well, they weren't happy. The waitress wasn't happy about it. But if you have, why not serve it? And why not make somebody happy? And of course, of all people, he can have that. But and then Jolene, I went to school with his wife. So
that's cool.
Yeah, well, she's part of the Vernacey family that was raised here. So for some reason, people wanted to see part of the family. My claim to fame, I'm part of this family. Okay, so I'd go out and meet them, and everybody was so sweet and so nice. And this one group of people were from Wisconsin, and the one fellow said, "Well, you can sign my motorcycle." Okay. how am I going to sign a motorcycle? Okay. So I went outside, and this motorcycle had beige fenders, for want of a better explanation, and he had taken paint or a magic marker and had put a line on there, and he said, Red Cedar's right here, so you either sign your name or put Red Cedar, because this is St. Louis, right? Start here. So you're right here. Okay, so I have signed a motorcycle. So that was fun, but those people were a lot of fun. Then we had a group of people come by during the day, and they were German, and almost all the German people, nobody wanted ice in their drinks. Oh. And it's like, wonder why they like this. They must like warm drinks. Well, I asked somebody about it later, and they said no, they wanted soda. They wanted all the soda. They didn't want a bunch of ice in there. I said, but it's a bottomless cup. Well, they didn't know it. I'm sure they didn't know it. When you work with, or you're around people that are older, a lot older than you, you hear different terms. And Dad would talk about icing up the beer. Because at night, you could restock. But I always heard ice up the beer. So, he had 3 or 4 bends, I guess. I can't exactly remember, but at least 3 or 4. Because they had wine in one to keep cold. And we had glasses. On a shelf. That was on a shelf in there. But, so a few times, when Wes wasn't around, and I'd be there closing up by myself, I'd tell the bartender, it's time, it's not busy, let's ice up the beer. You want me to put ice in here? No. Ice up. I guess that doesn't make sense, does it? Okay, you're going to take some of the cold ones out, and you're going to put warm ones in, and put the cold ones on top, in case a customer comes in, they're cold. And my son, Michael, when he was in grade school, I think I'm getting away from putting everything together. But when he was in grade school, I was always late for anything going on with him in grade school because of Red Cedar. And there was this lady and her dog called Lollipop that were walking Route 66. And he said, don't be late tonight. Don't be late. He was 7th or 8th grade, and it was the parents were all there, and don't be late. I won't be late. This lady's gonna be here in time. She's walking, we know ahead that she turned at Gray Summit and made a left and went into, off of Route 66 and went into Gray Summit. She was late. And I was late getting to this thing for him. I felt so bad. And I had promised I'd be there on time. But that's a good story, too, about the lady with the dog walking. And it was even on KMOX. They talked about her. And after she had done this, they said, but she went up to Ohio or somewhere. There's Route 66 isn't up there. And I'm listening to the radio, and I know what's going on. Her sister lived up there. That's why she went up there, and it's like, I never did call KMOX and tell them about it. But
everybody asks us about your fried chicken. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we haven't.
Tell them to go to St. John's when they know that.
That's what we said.
I said, Ginger told me I need to go to my church's chicken dinner, and that's where I can get it. And I said, it's good chicken too.
Yeah, is it
the same
very
recipe?
Very similar. I don't have any idea what their breading is. And here's the thing: if you have good oil, keep it clean, and you have fresh chickens, and that's a lot of serving good chicken.
It's fresh chicken.
We used to cater, when Wes and I were there, my brother started off, he and I, and when we went back in 88, it was our corporation. And then it just partnerships don't always work out. So we kind of, he took part of the business, which was catering, and vending machines, and and then I stayed at Red Cedar, and then we were able to sell alcohol on Sunday, which was because at that point you had to serve so much food to be able to sell alcohol, and when they let everybody sell alcohol on Sunday, then that ended our packaged liquor sales, and that hurt quite a bit. But what was it going with that? What was it?
Fried chicken,
Oh.
meals.
Oh, catering. Okay, so we still did the hot food catering to Enneagram, and 3 shifts a day there, and then we catered to Purina Farm too. But what was really neat was when we catered to Purina, one of the men, the older man that had worked there, he said, "You can really tell this is fresh chicken that we had brought to them," and made you feel good, made you feel real good. One day, that's how I started with the group of people came in. They stopped and they had a drink, and then they went and got a motel, but most of them were on motorcycles, and I learned meeting these people, a lot of different ones with motorcycles. They had their motorcycles shipped from other country, their own motorcycles here, and rode them on Route 66, which I thought was pretty incredible, but they liked doing that. So anyway, there was at least one car, maybe 2, I can't remember now, but then they had a bunch of motorcycles, and they were German. They were from Germany, and some spoke English, some didn't. And so they went and got a motel. They came back and ate, and then they came to the bar before we closed. And when we get out of the kitchen about 10, and so then we had a great time. The only thing I remember, one name was Rose, because my grandma's name was Rose, and so one of the ladies was Rose. So they were just the nicest people, and I noticed that they were in. It had to have been 2 cars, because they left in cars. They weren't driving motorcycles that night, and 2 of the people stopped drinking a while before we closed and did the driving. They drove the cars. So later, I don't know if it was a year later or when it was, somebody brought a magazine in, and it was about police officers in Germany, and these people were in that magazine. Those were all police officers. So that was really neat, yeah. But about half the people that stopped took pictures and went on. But you can't, if you're traveling Route 66, you can't eat and drink in every place you go to. So you're going to take just pictures at some of them. And then some would come in and have something to drink, and a few, maybe a 4th, would stop and eat. But a lot of times people would stop before we opened, and I would let them, I'd drive up and let them come in, and even after we closed, I would be going in and out of Red Cedar, and I would let people come in and see inside. But received a call, and you don't know, some of it sounds so incredible, you don't know if it's for real, Well, we're going to be filming, and we thought we'd start there maybe at your place, because they didn't travel the whole route, and my dear husband will repeat that and say they traveled. They didn't, but I don't want to correct him in front of people. But you know, when you start here, you know it's not the whole route. Anyway, but they only had so long to travel. But they were with Good Morning America. What channel was that? But I think it was 2. I think it was ABC. I think it's ABC. Well, anyway, so then they decided to start at Ted Drew's. Oh, Ted Drew. Oh, so I told my husband, I said, I really want to go. I want to go and meet these people, and I just want to be there. And we took Michael out of school with us, and my poor husband closed up the Red Cedar, and by the time he did what he had to do to close up, and we went down, he didn't get any sleep at all that night, and he's better at telling this story because he's really got some parts of that to tell. But Ted Drew was giving free coffee and drinks, and they had a lot of people there for this, and I'm right in the front when they're gonna pan, and I want my son to see me in Colorado, and they moved us all the way off. and it's people, and it's like, stop pushing me, you know, stop pushing me. But I got moved all the way off, so that's the way it goes. But got to talking to the film crew, and I said, you're going to go right by Red Cedar. Why don't you stop for lunch? And they talked about it for a while, and they said, yeah, we'll do that. So when we got back, and some of the Route 66 association people were there, and they came with us, got ready for the Good Morning America. Only one girl, Mindy Moore, was on camera, and then the rest were behind the scenes. But it was a rainy day, and it was cool. It was cool. But we made a big sign and put it on the left side of the front of the building. Welcome, Good Morning America. And we started off with Wes said, we'll make toasted ravioli, and some of these people had never had toasted ravioli. So we had that. We had like 5 courses, and by the time I had hot soup for them because it was cold and rainy, and I know I had strawberry shortcake, and they were, some of them were too full to eat by that time. They couldn't eat. But then we sent the caddies, the table caddies, you know, that Ralph made, that sweet man. He wasn't little, he was tall. But of course everybody's tall to me, but I mean he was tall. But we packaged that up, and we wrote a note in there. We said your people are wonderful and they deserve a raise. And we sent that to Good Morning America. When they had it on the TV, whoever opened up the box did not have that note, and we explained what it was, and you know, and that Ralph made it, and it wasn't there. And there's, what is this? What do you do? But they mentioned Red Cedar on Good Morning America. Then they asked, what place, when you traveled, did you like the best? And I said Red Cedar. Well, they didn't say red. I think they said Cedar Inn or something. I think is how it went. But we enjoyed people. But Wes and I both like people. And most people are nice, you know. I heard somebody say, was it on the radio maybe? Yeah, it was on the radio. I think it was on 1460. He was kind of shy and whatever, but his wife can walk out of the restaurant, restroom at a restaurant and make friends just walking out the door, you know. It's like, I can do that too. But, and I get teased all the time, and it's like, and then people think I know everybody in town. I don't know everybody, but I know a lot, but especially the old timers, you know, but I don't know everybody. But you see, I lived in Union, so I know people there. Went to Borgia, know people in Washington. But I know a few in all these places.
Tell us about when you got onto the National Registry.
Oh,
I saw pictures of big celebrations out there. And
yeah. Some lady kept calling. And I'd say, no, we don't want to do that. Nah, we don't want to do that. Because you have the idea that you can't do anything to your own building if you belong to this. And I said, Wes, will you talk to this lady? She called again. And so he did. And he said, you know, it sounds legitimate. And she said if we wanted to change anything. Because, you know, we had sidewalk outside. We were going to have tables up on this. You saw all that. We spent a lot of money on that. Oh. And coming out the bar room, it used to be one heck of a step coming down, and that was lower than the porch, and we had that built up. We spent some money. And I'm telling you, yeah, if our house hadn't failed and insurance tripled, we planned to retire there and still live in the basement. But I have had different ones tell me they dated. They go into Red Cedar for dates, and a lot of people were proposed to there. A lot of people that work there married. Mom met Dad there. Michael met Kim there. I met Rob's dad there. See, my first husband died in a car accident. And Eric Mort and Michelle Rug met there. And there was more people that, you know.
And you and Wes met there?
Yeah. Oh, we catered at Selkirk Auction House. And I think we went a few other places to cater, but why? I don't know why we... Oh, Selkirk's moved to Clayton, and I don't think we went with them there. But when they were in the I think Central West End, we catered. It was a big warehouse, and that was a lot of fun. But it was a lot of, well, work getting ready for it. But I learned how to buy stuff at an auction. After a few times taking food down there, my brother and I were still partners. He said, you've got to stop spending as much money as we make. So I had to stop that. But I met a lot of people there too. Oh, and then there was one lady that saw our menu, and she said, Red Cedar Inn. She said, I know those people. They used to come in my grandfather's restaurant, Pietro's. Oh, and they used to bring a baby, and they put the baby in the booth, and they'd eat and you know, be there. And I said, well, guess what? I'm that baby, because I heard Mom said that they took me in when they went to Pietro's, because that was the main road to St. Louis. That was before 44 was built, and they went to Restaurant Supply or Doctors or whatever. They like to stop at Pietro's.
Here's the story. There used to be, I don't know what kind of shed or it was right
It
next to
wasn't
it.
a shed. Don't call it a shed.
What is it? Tell us all about it.
It's a beer soda stand.
It was a beer soda stand. The whole time, even I know because it got knocked down once, and then did you guys rebuild it?
No, it didn't get knocked down.
Oh, I was told it got knocked down in the 40s. Okay, so that.
Okay, I was born in 47.
Yeah.
And I remember things from like the 3 or 4 years, you know, old.
Yeah.
And I don't ever remember it being knocked down.
So that was the same one from when your parents built it.
Yes, and it wasn't a shed. I'm tired of people talking about
no,
a shed.
because I knew there was. We have some different books or whatever that have told us that it was the beer soda stand, especially for Sundays. And you could get beer
Only
and
on
root beer,
Sundays.
and then you could get ribs.
The sides, it had wooden sides, and that there were chains that there was a thing on when you pull it up, and the chain would come down and hook to it. So then there was like a cover.
Okay.
And there was sliding screens. And see, years ago, you couldn't sell 5% alcohol on Sunday. So, I never asked Dad why that side door was there, other than somebody had the foresight to think that they were going to use that hill for picnics, because they have picnic tables there. And, you know, I wish so many times I had talked to Dad and asked him things, because he had all the information and Mom had a lot.
Mhm.
But people would get their food inside, come out, and you could buy 3-2 beer and soda. And inside of that building, I can remember from here to that wall was a box that had sliding doors on top, and the Dad had put beer and soda in there and put ice in it. It had ice, you know, and there was water. They had a sink, and there from, you know, where the well, I think they filled in the well or something, and I'm glad, because that worried me about that, because that's dangerous, could be dangerous. But from that well, there was a pipe, a little metal pipe, that came from the well to that building, and they had running water in there. And when I was a kid, I was short, of course, and small, pretty small, and I'd get on that pipe and go running around on that pipe. Well, you know, the sign out in front with that concrete and rock island, Mom and Dad called it the island out there, had the electric on it, so that it had signs, you know, so there were no signs. Well, let's see. Then when we were there, I remember Michael is the one who, Wes gave him the project of putting up that sign, and we had a real nice sign. I don't know where that is. Michael's got it probably. So you have to have signs to show people where you are, you know. We'd had ribs. They had barbecued ribs. Good. Somebody's going to end up talking about those barbecued ribs at some point. And they made their own. They took a barbecue sauce. They bought a barbecue sauce, but then they put other stuff in it and doctored it up and people liked it. It was good. It was really good. I haven't made that in a long time.